Good morning. This is, of course, at the time of this video recording where I am, which is Houston. And my name is Wei Li, spells as W-E-I as first name, L-I is last name, and pronounced as Wei Li. This presentation is in behalf of Bauer Business School of University of Houston, and it is intended for a particular group of audience. The title of this presentation is AI Applications for Energy Industry. But again, this is intended for a particular group of audience in the UAE, so I will make this relevant to the nation state. Now, this presentation is going to be 45 minutes, and I will divide it into 3 parts, each somewhat equivalent to about 15 minutes, or at least I'll try to do so. The first 1/3 will be dedicated to AI, and the second 1/3 will be dedicated to energy, which covers both emerging and traditional energy industries. And the last 1/3 will be dedicated to UAE, the nation state, where and why and how it's relevant, at least pertains to this presentation. So without further ado, here we go. When we talk about AI, there's a lot of talks about AI, and depends who you ask. The definition could totally be different. So I'm here just presenting my personal view, and by no means I would claim to be the highest scholastic authority to provide the definition for anybody else. No, but this is basically how I see it. So whether you agree with me, that's totally up to you, and I would certainly be interested to hear back what do you think, how much or at all you agree with me. So first thing first, I believe there's a lot of hype today and mysteries about the word AI. Now, what is interesting is, I guess it's a market phenomena that we believe is worthy of observation. Being a teaching professional at a business school, so I think it's totally relevant. When DeepSeek, the Chinese AI product, came out, it created a hype in the Chinese stock market. But it didn't last long. A few months later, anything to do with the stock, stock-wise, anything to do with AI, they devalued. And basically it went down. So that means the hype came and went. So it's basically between the boom and buzz. It was a very short-lived life cycle in the market, the security market. So is there any reason behind this? I think so, because what it is, I personally believe the large model today out there, DeepSeek or not, basically it's all along the same streamline, because there are 2 critical criteria to measure today of these large models, or whatever or however you want to call it. What it is, the 2 critical criteria to measure them: 1 being math, for modeling; 2, coding. So basically they're looking at it like, okay, if you're a human programmer, can you top this, or how do you compare to that? So this is basically how they evaluate a product of large model, or whatever technical term you want to put on it, but it's basically that. Now the problem, obviously there's nothing that is perfect, right? Especially at this stage, but still, the big problem that I see is they are too general. And this is supposed to be generative AI, meaning it actually automatically generates things, but general versus generate or generative. General means, okay, so if you say, okay, I want to see what a ghost look like, and it will come out perfectly. Why? Have you ever seen a ghost? No? So, okay, you're just going to have to take whatever the image come up in. It could look really convincing in image, right? But what if you're saying, okay, I want you to tell me how to solve the problem, because today all those offshore wind projects, they don't deliver on time, and there's a lot of problem there, and also the price is too high when it comes down to how much per kilowatt hour, and things like that. The more specific, the more particular you go into depth, then most likely the answer would come up so irrelevant. It's not what you wanted to hear from the system. And it's referred to as illusion, because basically the system does not know the border where it's supposed to apologize when it comes to the limit of the knowledge it already acquired. So for human being, we know what we know what we don't know, and we don't know what we don't know, right? But when you're asking this AI system, you don't hear like, oh, actually, this is not my area of expertise, and so nevertheless, I do not think I am really qualified to give you that answer. So there is your limit. Even though the coding is perfect, probably much better than any human being programmer, or the math model is so great, it still doesn't, solve the problem. So, but it is not even supposed to, right? So it is supposed to be a foundation. So you will have to have very specialized application, well intended to a certain scope of, expertise. And that was not something that the team developed the AI large model or whatever else. That's not what they were there for. But they are supposed to provide the foundation for someone to do the applications on top of that. Okay, so that's that. Now, when I think about the large model or the application, which is one step further, and today not a lot of, yes, there are many, but not enough, because basically for the large model product to turn into profitable business, they rely on the application development, right? And today just simply not enough. And I'm presuming, I don't know for a fact, but I'm presuming the hype came and went in China market is basically they don't see the return on the investment or ROI. All the business school teach about that. So that was the reason that I speculate why the hype in China security market came and went. And so I would like to go a little bit further to that, which is basically everybody is using the word reasoning or inferencing when they talk about the large model. But what is really reasoning? What is inferencing? This actually, I think, is a loose term the way it is today. I think personally it's more of a pattern matching the way it is today. Is it? And we hear people claim that they are building something exceed the human capacity, which I really here would like to argue that no, you're not. We talk about a pattern matching. I have a dog and I have a cat. They both observe my pattern, the day-to-day procedure, And then we have developed a protocol based on the procedure. When I do certain things in the daily routine, and then they respond. So we communicated really well, and that became our protocol. Now, my dog's about 7-year-old, which is supposed to be somewhere like equivalent to the human 3 to 5-year-old intelligence. And the cat, I don't know the theory, but they both communicated really effectively with me because basically they observe my pattern in the daily routine. But when I change my pattern, immediately they adjust. So it does not matter how much I change, as long as I change and give them probably about 1 day, then they match. So now if your large model can do the same, like pattern matching, and you're claiming this is exceeding the human intelligence capacity, I'm sorry, I don't think I can agree with that. So we have the reasoning and we have inferencing, and again, that you have to consult the definitions. And I don't personally accept what some of those practitioners, what they claim, but there is a smart and there is a wise. So what is smart? Smart is, I think personally, my definition is smart is referring to the capacity and the speed you pick up things. So when you have the computer scan things, right? So human, we have, even the best ones, we have the photographic memories. Still, we cannot compare to the computation power of scanning and then sorting and then put them on the database and all that. So that's where human brain cannot compete, right? That's smart, but wise. So on top of reasoning, inferencing, there is a deduction. That we talk about the general, the generative or generate, and now generation. So you learn about something, right? In 1, 2, or 3 cases, and you know how to broadly apply that from what you learned and make sense and provide solutions to different problems. That's a deduction. That's wise. When it comes to that, there's a strategy involved. So let's say interpersonal. Some culture would definitely try to avoid direct confrontation, and they communicate in different way. Other culture probably just basically, hey, I beat you and I beat you. Such practice does not think about what happens several months later or even several years later. Who's going to be the one, the last standing and laughing, right? So this is about the wisdom. So that comes down to different culture, how you're brought up. If you're religious and you have different religions, so your value would be different. So how do you make a decision? So we have the decision, we have game theory. Of course, these are math model, you can solve, but not everything can be quantified, right? So when you make very important decisions, do you really want to rely on so-called AI for completely to take over? What if there is no chance to modify? And we know nobody is perfect and nothing's perfect. So what if there's some design flaws in there and the system, like when you try to pick up the phone and a custom phone number, and then today there's a lot of AI rotary. So basically give you 10 options, and just so happen whatever you wanted is not within the 10 options. And then you basically just get, shuffled back and forth within the loop again. You cannot even get out and you cannot get in. We all have that experience. What if this AI thing gets you there? So my personal advice would be, I would not, at least not at this point, I would not totally replace the human wisdom with this today not so matured AI stage product. So that is what I think about AI. So here's something. So if everything is, I want to use the word, this is probably a little radical. Everything's contaminated and substituted by AI. And then we see the flaws here and there. I want to use a little analogy. Today in the United States, if something organic, like I'm talking about grocery, like fruits or vegetables, if it's organic, it costs a lot more money. And what is organic? That is something never, ever altered by the human inventions that changed the way it was. If you believe in creators, or if you believe in Mother Nature, basically it just stayed the way it was, and now it's still the way it is. So what if, as a business school teaching professional, you actually preserve a business opportunity you actually identify as HI, meaning human intelligence, when AI completely took over, right? There's the idea there. But anyway, this is just to give you an analogy that is my 2 cents. I do not, even though I'm the one actually today doing my project with the AI, but the point is I use it as a tool. I do not intend to replace and have the system calling all the shots, because we're not there yet. In fact, if you ask any neurologist, how much do we know about the human brain work? Do we even know about 10%? I doubt it. So if you don't even know how human brain works, how can you claim that you are going to exceed the human brain capacity? No. The computer system, they're good at certain things, and human brain at other things. And also this AI pre-training or post-training, they're kind of like the upbringing of little kids. So when you have more exposures of all different kind of things, diversified, and then the kids grow up, basically with a lot more readiness in all different actions, as versus the kid never had any exposures of different aspect as diversified. That's totally different. So imagine you have a team, all PhD, specialized in the math or computer science and all that, but what if the team is lack of on the institutionalized knowledge basis or realm? They don't know anything about art, literature, and now they claim they can do the AI composed music, and AI created visual arts. Yeah, maybe for some people they could not tell the difference, so music is music, right? Visual art is visual art. But for other people who have a little more exposure to this, they cannot be satisfied. Why? Because it just basically, the word quiche, it's popular, but it doesn't have the sophistication, it doesn't have the taste, because it was created by the system that is designed by people who did not have the exposure. So I will just leave it there. Now, we're going to talk about the energy industry, which covers both the emerging or sustainable or the green and the traditional. Just so happen I'm in both. So first of all, in the traditional oil gas industry and chemical, basically the problem is too much data. Nobody knows what to do with them. Too much, right? Now, on top of that, I personally, in about 10 years ago, tried to solve some of the problem with operational research model, and it certainly was so much better than not to have it. The problem with that approach was basically it's momentary. And then the whole thing basically it just keeps developing, evolving. It's more like a dynamics as versus so when you have the OR, the operational research, solving the problem, so the constraint and everything you put in there, but then you find out there are more, and then there are more, and there are more, right? So this is why the traditional problem solving operational research method could not really deliver the satisfactory solutions. But with the AI, or actually precisely machine learning, or even better, deep learning, we can solve the problem because that system just keeps studying and come up with newer resolutions, marginally improving, but overall works. So if I don't claim this is like the total solution, totally substitute human capacity, I can certainly find this helpful. And I give two examples. One, and they're both supply chain management related, and that's what I teach, supply chain management. So for the traditional oil, gas, and chemical, I'm talking about upstream, and that's where my expertise lies. The upstream, so you would have logistic, you would have the procurement, right? And both, they constantly cause problem, upstream project. And so project delay. So we believe about 50% of the project delay were normally attributed by the supply chain problem. And when you work on what we call capital project in oil, gas, and the chemical upstream, we're talking about somewhere around $1 million daily operational revenue. And so if you delay by 1 day, that's 1 million. And sometimes we can see 6 months. So you're talking about 180 multiplied by $1 million. And that's what we call the operational revenue loss. Okay. So should we work on the supply chain problem, at least, to save some of this operational revenue loss? Of course we should. And could deep learning actually make sense to this? Yes, I've been there. So I first tried to do this manually from my human capacity, based, draw back on my expertise for the operational management from the industry, both the logistic industry and oil industry. And as a human being, I can work out probably 2 to 3 scenarios. And then, so what were the root cause of the risks? So what were available or viable avenues contributing to the solutions to mitigate the risks? And the risk could, if you don't treat it well, you don't mitigate, it becomes actually problems. So in any scenario, you would have a lot of things to work on. So what is available or viable avenues for solutions? Each solution would have the advantage and disadvantage. So you have to weigh the options, right? So you develop the criteria and use the criteria, and then you decide which scenario is better, right? So I can definitely tell you, in each of such a plan, you will easily have 100 scenarios if you want to. But of course, I don't, because that's too much brain power. So if you have the AI to substitute this part, to use the computation power, of course it helps. So you can get like 2,000 scenarios like that, right? So that's where it helps to use AI application to solve the problems for the traditional oil, gas, and chemical industry, for the supply chain management part of the problems. And then we talk about the green energy. Specifically, I'm involved in the offshore wind generation project. So where would that help? Oh, there are so many problems. Almost you look at it everywhere, deep learning will help. Will help because this is unlike the traditional energy industry, the green power industry. We don't have as much data. So deep learning is deployed to offer what you don't have. Is that absolutely trustworthy? No. But do you have any better options? No. So anyway, so with these two cases, without going deep into details, which I can later in probably separate videos, but time is a constraint right now. So I will stop right here. But one thing I do want to emphasize is regardless, American, European, or Middle East, the oil, gas, and chemical industry, one of the things, like everybody's talking about digitalization, but the thing is at least in the supply chain management of the upstream sector, you have to first make sure everything is quantified and streamlined, the work process streamlined. And then you do the digitalization. So a lot of them today, they're not at the streamlined part of the process before they go digitalization. And so when you institutionalize the digitalization-based procedure on a not workable, not practical basis, then it will be just like an ERP in the United States. A lot of manufacturers, they deployed, but people basically just twisted, and it's almost like a purpose defeating. And this is the same thing. So you want to do this, you want to make sure you are able to do this. So as far as the supply chain management part, it is easier because in an oil company, at least in the US, in other departments, you see a lot of PhDs, but in supply chain management, a lot of them, they may or may not even have the bachelor degree. And there are a lot of basically positions, they don't even have any employees. So would that be easier to go digitalization? Yes. If the decision is made, yes. But anyway, I'll just leave it there. Now, I'm going to the sustainable energy part. Right now, everybody is, I'm talking about the major investment bankers or the institutions, they're betting on the super data center for the AI, for the pre-training and all that. And I think that the big problem everybody knows is great computation power demands great electricity power to support it. So where did you get the electricity, right? And that becomes a big problem. People are struggling to try to find a solution. Now, we move on to the next one, the last portion of this presentation. Where and how does this become relevant to UAE, the nation state? Well, first of all, UAE is in a place today at the times of geopolitical or bloc politics era in a very strategically better position because UAE is in good relationship with just about every bloc power, being the EU or the US or BRICS. It kind of a neutral. So that is a good market position because it works with everybody, namely. And then the other thing is, that was not just a theoretical presumption. Everybody knows about the Stargate, the AI supercenter. Costs a lot of money to build. And supposedly the service range could reach 2,000 miles. I don't mean to question that, but I don't know enough. I don't have the data. So I will leave it there on that. But what it is, the big fact is probably the biggest super data center for AI worldwide, right? So that is something already there at the UAE, meaning like OpenAI or the XAI, and I believe also it just struck a deal with the French Mistral. Sorry, I don't speak French, but anyway, so it is basically working with the Western AI power. Is it working with the Chinese? Like the Chinese have also a few, like DeepSeek or I forgot it. I forgot. Anyway, so it's a big marketplace for that, and then there's probably a less known fact. There is a large model product developed at UAE called Falcon, and that came out long before DeepSeek. So basically, what we're seeing is AI is already a fact in UAE, and this actually, I think, is ahead of Europe already for this aspect. So we know UAE is a big oil, gas, and chemical nation state and is determined to develop the green energy. And now the AI is there. So the question here is, with all the data center and the Falcon, and working with OpenAI and Grok and Mistral and probably more to develop. So all this to make money, again, business school, right? To make money, you have to have the applications for other third parties to develop based on your models, or at least working with your data center, right? So that you can make money by having all these applications developed, and either hosted at your place or with all the data. Again, this is the nation state working with all the different blocks, the EU, the US, the UK, and Far East, right? So this is where, why, and how any business people with visions would want to consider, at least, why would I, as one business person, want to put my project, the application project for the AI assistance or whatever. I would not want to use the word AI driven, but anyway, to help solve the problem. And that's where the big opportunity UAE, I believe, should have. Now, we talked about the electricity power support for the computation power. And with that huge super data center, obviously, that is one question. I'm sure there has been some engineering solutions proposed or even already put or beginning to put into work. But here, what I have is a suggestion. What if we have the sustainable energy to go for the super data center? Is that possible? If you look at the traditional windmill-based offshore wind power system today. Of course, there are a lot of challenges. And what we have today, a project that I'm personally involved, does not work the same. In fact, has nothing to do or nothing in common with the traditional windmill offshore wind power generation technologies. This is totally different. This is something working with a EU top academic institution to turn the patent into prototype, and also working with other countries and institutions on the other portions of the project. It is very promising, but I will leave that in case anyone is interested. I'll be more than happy to address your questions or interests in detail. But now that I look at the time, I still have about 8.5 minutes left. So I'm going to go back to talk about the AI and the energy industry, because as far as the UAE, I need more data. I've never been to the country yet. I need to know more about it before I can actually talk in sense. So I use the time to go back to AI, right? So I want you to think like this. I remember I was in one of my previous life, I was in the documentary TV business. And I remember it was probably BBC. They had series. They followed the kids in the UK from different family background. Some are like lawyers, doctors, judge. Their kids, obviously, they were exposed to different things compared to the otherwise the households who did not have all these opportunities. And the documentary followed those kids until they grow into adult, and totally different turnout. So now we come back to the large model, right? So if the team developed this, they have all different kind of knowledge, institutionalized, very diversified. So the large model will basically cover a lot more grounds there. I give you one analogy. Okay, I don't want to mention any name, but there was this very dominant online vendor who offered a music program, audio program. And this basically just tells me the team or the people developed this program had absolutely no knowledge about classical music, because instead of going by the schools, let's say Romanticism or classical or Impressionism, instead of going by the historical period or the music schools, it categorized as Monday music, Tuesday music. And then you're like, I'm totally lost. Okay, let's say I want to listen to Bach, and I know it's in the classical period, but they don't categorize that way. So how do you retrieve from the archived music? You're lost, right? So that tells them that. And then I watch the YouTube videos. So some people, they're very well-respected professional, and I give it that too for, what they're good at. But this person claimed the music note is already out there. So our system can just, compose music. Yes. For people who don't know the difference, of course, music is music, right? But who are the kind of people you're targeting as your audience, as your customer in the market. So what I think this is oversimplified, because in the post-industrial societies, we're supposed to be in a culturally pluralism society. And if the AI products come out as somewhat singular, how does that work, right? And I'll give you another example. Okay, so the Chinese traditional herb medicine, it was basically accumulated and developed for several thousand years, and now is pretty much dead, gone. Nobody knows, right? It was part of the, because in Asia, modernization about 150 years ago was westernization. So people basically adapted to the Western science and then the traditional Chinese medical science. Nobody really knows it anymore. And let me tell you how advanced that was. The traditional Chinese herb medicine, every single patient, you will not have the same prescription because it's individual based. By having your pulse, they know your history and what's the problem. And so the prescription, each one of them is individual based. Not only that, the first time you go to see a doctor, the herb doctor in China, ancient China, give you one prescription, but after that medication is done, you go back, revisit, then the prescription changes. So that's how sophisticated it was. And that's the human knowledge accumulated through thousands of years. As versus today, the Western medicine, I used to work at the pharmaceutical factory, so I know just about all the medical service recommended or the prescriptions they gave you, the medications, the drugs, all of them over time, you will see the side effects. And that's the problem the traditional herb Chinese medicine did not have. Okay, because I already know all the side effects. So now imagine you're taking the medication totally developed by the AI, let alone the human developed the Western medicine already has a side effect. So are you absolutely comfortable to have your life basically taking chance on this new Western medicine developed by AI? Personally, I don't think I'm comfortable. And is it a good direction to go into? Yes. You have to start from somewhere. You have to explore. But are we comfortable to actually just let it take over? Personally, I'm not. And this is just one example about AI. Use it properly to develop the applications. Do not let go. Do not let the AI system take over. You still need to rely on your human intelligence, the wisdom to develop the strategy, and only leave the technical part to the AI to use the computation power, not anything else. We still have the wisdom for strategies. And if you look at the development teams, how their knowledge structured, do you absolutely think you are comfortable to let their products do everything for you? What is human, right? They're all different. The guy never went to school. He invented electricity, the founder of GE, right? Do you compare to that? Or do you compare to all the other famous scientists? And they're totally different. So I will just leave it like that. Basically, the note is Ask the right question. Do not give up. Human intelligence still should have a long way before the AI completely take over, or at least I hope so. I'll talk to you later. When you have questions, please leave your question here and I will try to reply. Thank you very much. Ciao.